Morning and welcome back to Football League World TV. The opening weekend of AFL season is done and dusted, barring one fixture tonight between Watford and Sheffield United. So it's a return for our show, the AFL Weekend Review. I'm your host, Alfie Burns, and joining me are my two colleagues, Marcus and Adam. Marcus, how are you this morning?
Yeah, really well, thanks, Alfie. It's good to be back up and running with the season. The transfer window's been fun, but good to have the bread and butter back to talk about. Lots of exciting moments in the opening weekend. So looking forward to running through them this morning.
I couldn't agree with you more. The transfers are all well and good, but there's nothing like the fixtures. Adam, how are you?
I mean, are you sure about that? Because I support Reading, and to be honest with you, I wish it was still pre-season. But no, as you say, football season's back. I'm excited to get into it. New players, new kits, new season, and new beginnings.
Absolutely. We're streaming across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter this morning. We're going to run across a couple of the standout games from across all three divisions this morning. If you're joining us, want to get your thoughts in the comments, please do. We'll get your comments up on the show. We'll kick things off as we usually do with the Championship. A low number of goals across Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Actually, 15 scored in 11 games. Strangely, for an opening weekend, that's quite low after seeing goals flying in everywhere. We'll start with Friday night's game between Huddersfield Town and Burnley, a 1-0 win for Burnley. Ian Maatsen with the only goal of the game. Burnley, a real talking point coming out of this game. A superb performance from Vincent Kompany's side. Marcus, it was chalk and cheese from what we saw from Burnley in the Premier League.
It was, absolutely. The Clarets, one of the most intriguing sides, I think, to monitor going into the season, because with Vincent Kompany, a newcomer in the dugout, at least to English football, there was, it wasn't going to be clear exactly how they were going to play until we really saw it in the flesh. 66% possession, only conceded 2 shots to Huddersfield, both of which were from outside the area as well, or sort of speculative efforts. Really professional job. The Terriers couldn't really offer what they did at times last season, but you got to credit Burnley for that. I thought, as you mentioned, Ian Maatsen, an outstanding debut, was a great outlet from left wing back in a creative sense, as well as scoring what proved to be the winner. I thought Josh Cullen was excellent in midfield coming in. After playing in a Kompany system for a couple of seasons, he seems really well suited to hit the ground running in the Championship again, having impressed in a loan spell at Charlton a few years back. I was also quite excited by Dara Costello making his debut on the right of the front three, 19-year-old Irishman. Probably could have done better. Had a great chance where Ian Maatsen slipped him in, sort of scuffed the shot wide. But at 19 years old to make your debut and to come up in as many promising areas as he did, I think was very impressive. And of course, he deserves credit for forcing his way into Kompany's thinking sort of early on in the campaign as well, while players in the background sort of have their futures up in the air. Definitely a exciting player to come to the fore. So, apart from the scoreline not maybe being as comfortable as the game panned out, it was pretty much a perfect first display for Burnley. 3 points, so comfortable defensively, created chances, and the new signings really having an impact. So, full marks to Kompany. I don't think he could have imagined it going too much better.
6 debuts Kompany handed out in his starting 11, 5 of which were new signings. Scott Twine as well stepped off the bench. Maatsen was impressive. Cullen was impressive. I actually thought that Scott Twine's little cameo from the bench, he hit the post, he was good as well. Adam, are we starting to see that Vincent Kompany's got a real eye for a player?
Yeah, definitely. And it's he actually took a massive gamble, really. I think the whole club has taken a massive gamble this summer, really. I know that they didn't really have that much choice with letting go of Tarkowski. But I think with some other players, they've let them go and they're kind of rebuilding. So the fact that they managed to put in such a cohesive performance, I thought was very impressive. I thought the debuts they're very good as well. I think Ian Maatsen will be a real asset on that left-hand side, definitely going forward anyway. Perhaps with Charlie Taylor behind him, who started him well actually as kind of a centre-back. So I thought he did very well as well. Some of the existing players, and as you mentioned there, Costello making his debut as well at 19. He's taken some chances really on some younger players, and I think that's a a good thing, really. Obviously, a little bit of change was needed because you needed to instill a new style of play, but still to take that kind of risk and have some quite young players in there and some quite a few new players in there. 6 players making their debuts. I thought they all did very well, and I thought they were quite a decent unit. For the first game against a side that got to the playoff final last season, I thought that was not a bad performance at all. Not a bad performance.
The talk in the press box after the game was about how good Burnley were, but also how bad Huddersfield were, particularly in the first half. A quick word on them then, Marcus. Do you think it was just a bad day at the office, or is it maybe a sign of things to come?
Hard to say at this point. I'd say maybe more a sign of things to come than a bad day at the office. It was a nasty first game, really, wasn't it? The way that Burnley want to play and keep the ball as much as they did. I think a lot of what made Huddersfield so good last season was the way that Corberan set them up defensively. And maybe that was the game plan going into this one. Again, they knew they were probably outsiders in terms of the quality on their team sheet. So if they could stay in the game, keep players behind the ball and take it deep as they did so many times last season, that could be a good way to try and pick up something from the match. Obviously, Martson scoring in the first half sort of threw that out the window and meant that they had to come out of their shell a little bit more in the second period. So I think with Burnley taking the lead so early, that kind of blew that out of the water a bit. It's too early to judge, I think, on that, and I think we should be. I left the game sort of thinking I was more high on Burnley's performance than I was negative about Huddersfield's. I think we'll be able to judge them when they play some easier opposition, because the Clarets are definitely amongst the favourites to possibly even win the Championship title after a performance like that at this early stage. It's a tricky one. Not an ideal start for Danny Schofield, but potentially with the players that they've lost and the sort of they've sort of made more long-term signings in the transfer market as well. Not players that I expect to hit the ground running straight away in this first half of the season. I think it could be a sign of things to come. I'm not really expecting the Terriers to be performing at the high levels that they were last term.
Moving on to Saturday's action then, we'll start with Millwall 2, Stoke City 0. Charlie Cresswell with a brace, the centre-back from 2 set pieces. Some impact on his debut, Adam.
Yeah, I had a feeling that you would mention him as a Leeds United fan, but no, seriously, fantastic. I thought it was a commanding performance from him. Even with the one really good chance that Stoke City had, obviously with Bielkowski nearly putting it into his own net, heading it out, being commanding. I guess the first goal he did well to get his head on it, and the second goal, I think you could kind of question Stoke City's defending a little bit. He was left really there as a free man. But still, to volley it into the back of the net like that, it just shows you really, how much of an asset he could be this season. Obviously, they needed to replace the lack of goal scoring threat that they're going to have now with Jeb Wallace gone, but it's come through an unlikely source. And they need someone as well at the back who's going to do a good job as well, because Daniel Ballard, not to get him on a permanent deal, I think was a bit of a blow for them. So to get Cresswell in, who can be a real asset in both boxes, maybe be the Championship version of last season's Harry Darling. He could be a real asset going forward as well. So. Very promising debut. A promising sign of things to come. Obviously, at 19, this is a good kind of time for him to go out on loan. I think if he wants to be in Leeds United's first team next season, I think he does need to really impress at the Den. So it's a big year for him, but he's got off to the perfect start.
Moving on to another fixture then, Cardiff City 1, Norwich City 0. Romain Sawyers with the goal in a game that had a red card apiece for both sides. Let's just start with Norwich, given that they've just come down out of the Premier League, Marcus. Do you think it's just a little bit of a blip for them? You're not reading too much into it?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I mean, given how poor they were last season, it feels strange to call a 1-goal away defeat a blip. Dean Smith's won just 6 of 31 matches in the dugout. And I know what the Canaries came and did last time they were in the Championship, but I don't think that's really in the norm when you get relegated from the Premier League in the fashion that they did, scoring just 23 goals in 38 games. there should really be a hangover from that, naturally. They haven't made some signings that have changed the squad up and the dynamic of it completely. I know Dean Ashton was saying on the Football League highlight show this weekend about how he doesn't really see Dean Smith's stamp on that squad compared to what it was like with Daniel Farke in recent years. That said, I think defensively there was plenty of positives to take. It was a really poor game, to be honest, in terms of creating chances in the final third. Cardiff have won the game 1-0 and they've had 3 shots, 2 on target, both from outside the box. I think Romain Sawyers is trying to pass it as well, and it ends up going all the way in. So from an attacking standpoint, it was worrying. I don't think it's too much of a surprise if there is a transition period with them back in the Championship after the extended poor runs they experienced last season. And there's a lot of players in that squad that don't really feel proven in English football. So yeah, it was a tough away day. Obviously, Cardiff really sort of enthusiastic about the season after the positivity that Morrison generated in the second half of last season. So yeah, it's hard to quantify whether it's a blip or not on the opening day. But I think the proof will be in the pudding in the coming weeks. I think they've got Wigan next up, so that's an opportunity to pick up 3 points. It was not encouraging at all, to be honest. They must have just 0.19 expected goals against a Cardiff side that was shipping goals at times last season. So yeah, it was quite worrying if you were a Norwich fan, but the positive being that, of course, it was only the first game.
Despite Cardiff's win, the narrative from a Norwich perspective was that it wasn't a great performance from Cardiff either. Now, whether that's sour grapes or not, we'll leave that sort of question. The answer to that, open. What was your opinion, Adam, on Cardiff's performance at the weekend?
You can tell they're still a work in progress. Even with the goal, there was a little bit of miscommunication, like players that weren't really on the same kind of wavelength, but he managed to keep the ball in. So yeah, they're still very much a work in progress. But you can kind of understand why they did reasonably well in terms of getting a result, because they moved quite early during the transfer window to get some of their business done. I think the main positive for them is the fact that they managed to keep a clean sheet. Obviously, they perhaps rode their luck a couple of times. Obviously, Norwich hit the crossbar, but I think the fact that they did get a clean sheet will be the main positive for them, and that will give them plenty of confidence going into the next few games, because that's quite a new look, really, kind of defence. Obviously, with quite a few kind of reinforcements coming in during the summer. So yeah, the fact that they were able to not concede, especially when you've got not just the likes of Todd Cantwell, but also Max Aaron's going down the right hand side, proving to be a threat. The fact they have managed to keep Norwich out is a real kind of positive point for them. Obviously, as Marcus said, I think the goal was a little bit fluky, to be honest with you. But they'll take those, and at the end of the day, it's 3 points in the bag. But as I said earlier, it's still work in progress.
Moving on to Sunday, then Sunderland won. Coventry won. Victor Gyökeres with a solo effort to cancel out Jack Clark's opening goal. For me, this was a really, really good game. Adam, I'll stick with you with the first question here. Do you actually think that a point apiece is one that Sunderland and Coventry will be happy with, given how that this, for different reasons, was quite a testing opening fixture?
Yeah, I think for Coventry, I think it's a bit of a relief for them. Obviously, they were coming up against quite a hostile atmosphere at the Stadium of Light. It's always going to be like that. They kind of knew what to expect, but still that's still something to contend with. And obviously, going behind, through quite a poor fashion. Actually, I thought Simon Moore, was coming out of his goal quite unnecessarily. So for me, the fact that they did manage to get back into the game through an individual bit of quality, really, from Gyökeres, I thought for them that they'll absolutely 100% take it. And for Sunderland, I mean, it's a start. I know that they'll be disappointed, but I think they'll be less disappointed because of the fact that they were just undone by a bit of individual quality. It wasn't as if it was any real fault of their own. It was just one bit of quality, really, from Gyökeres that proved to be kind of the difference, really, between 3 points and 1 point. There was plenty of positives for both sides to kind of take out of the game. Obviously, as a Coventry fan, I think you're naturally a little bit disappointed because they're a recently promoted side, the Black Cats, but still, it's they're going to be competitive. I think Sunderland this season. So I think for both sides, it's a point they'll take and they'll move on from that.
If you've not seen Gyökeres's goal. It's well worth a watch. I think it's somewhere on the Football League World Twitter feed. Special player, Marcus.
Yeah, absolutely. He seems Premier League bound, really, if he's going to be putting in performances like that. 17 goals last season, of course, started like an absolute train and then had a bit of a drop off, but the quality is really there for all to see. I was really impressed with his all-round performance. I think he was one of the best performers in the match, even before scoring the equaliser with about 10 minutes left to go. Really stood up to the physical battle against an old school championship defender in Danny Bart. You'd argue the Swede even got the better of him. Led the line terrifically well. Had a couple of opportunities that I feel like if he had a few more games in his legs would have been able to take, or at least test the keeper. There was one in particular where Godden fed him in and he sort of took a heavy touch trying to work a shot, which could have got Sky Blues level. He really stepped up, I think, maybe even more so in the absence of Callum O'Hare, who Robbins was keen to state it was an injury why he missed the game rather than any speculation. He really stepped up in that. Matty Godden tweeted after the game how grateful he was that he scored that equaliser because Godden missed one chance in particular that looked probably harder to miss than score. It's a huge positive to have him open his account so early in the fashion that he did as well. He's going to be a huge player for Cov this season, particularly if O'Hare does depart between now and the end of the window. But yeah, it was a really exciting performance from a player that showed his class last season, and can potentially even build on that and be looking at 20 goals as a realistic target if he can sustain the performance levels that he showed yesterday.
Moving down into League One then, goals galore compared to the Championship. We'll pick out two of the highest scoring games. We'll start with Cheltenham 2, Peterborough 3. Jack Marriott and a brace from Johnson Clark-Harris staging a stunning comeback from Peterborough, who were 2-0 behind in the game. Adam, a sort of contest, a really good contest, where Peterborough's firepower in the final third proved to be the difference.
Yeah, and also I think that Grant McCann should be taking quite a lot of the credit as well, because he made some, just really decisive changes at half time. Getting another kind of option really in Jack Marriott on. Those two together can be a real force in League One. Even in the Championship they could have been a force, but unfortunately for Marriott's injury, that didn't exactly happen. But in terms of both of them, you can't forget as well that Clark-Harris scored more than 30 goals during the 2020-21 campaign. So he's going to be a real asset to have in the third tier as well. And in the end, it was Clark-Harris and Marriott that found themselves in the right positions at the right time. They weren't the most spectacular of goals, but I think they're kind of the goals that strikers will be kind of most satisfied with, because they managed to get themselves kind of in the right place at the right time. I was particularly impressed with Johnson Clark-Harris's positioning for the second goal. He found himself on the edge of the box and put it away with no troubles at all. I don't think there's too much really in terms of defence to be concerned about. I know that obviously the first goal, I think it was just a bit unlucky really with the own goal. The second one, I think, was just a bit of a lapse of concentration or a kind of a misunderstanding really. But if you're going to give Alfie May that, the ball on the plate with kind of 1-on-1 with the keeper, then he's always going to score. But they'll be hoping to tighten things up at the back. I don't think there's too many worries going backwards. I think going forwards, they just need to make sure they've got enough depth, because if they lose one of Clark-Harris or Marriott, they're going to lose quite a lot of their firepower. So just making sure that they have enough depth, when the window closes going forward, because I think their forward line can take them very close to kind of promotion alone if they stay fit. Obviously, Marriott was injured last season for quite a while, and that just kind of emphasises the need really to have quite a bit of depth kind of in that department. But in the end, it was a clinical performance really from the likes of Marriott and Clark-Harris, and in the end that proved to be the difference.
Marriott and Clark-Harris then. Marcus, enough there to get Peterborough well in the automatic promotion question in League One, even though it's early in the season.
Absolutely. Yeah, they've got great depth as well. As Adam mentions, McCann was able to change the game with players that he brought on from the bench. I think that they've got the type of squad that's almost injury-proof unless it's really bad. I'm excited to see how the likes of Joel Randall and Kwame Poku can do after stepping down from the Championship. yeah, we know how good Jack Marriott is when he's fully fit. It's just a shame that he hasn't been able to sort of sustain that over the last few years. And as Adam mentioned, Clark Harris was the hottest striker in the division in 2020-21. Hit 12 goals, which is very respectable in the second tier, given how poor Posh were last season. So yeah, no, possibly the most feared striker in the division, and he looks like it. Yeah, but McCann will be concerned by the defending in the first half, and Cheltenham definitely have plenty of positives to take from the performance. But yeah, all's well that ends well. To get 2 goals for your main striker on the opening day of the season must be satisfying. Obviously, Sheffield Wednesday and Ipswich are kind of going in as the big hitters in League One this season. But I think Posh, for me, are definitely the strongest of the newly relegated clubs. I think there's definitely a transition in place with the other 2 sides, and obviously they finished the season fairly strongly. Obviously, yeah, McCann was able to get much better results than Ferguson did. So yeah, Posh definitely a side that should be targeting at least the automatic promotion mix, and yeah, potentially able to ruffle some feathers in that top 2. With their forward line being the key strength in the division. I'm sure they're going to be a great follow. Could be lots of goals at both ends.
A game that's hard to ignore up next then. Sheffield Wednesday 3, Portsmouth 3. An incredible game at Hillsborough, which included 4 goals in just 14 second half minutes. It's difficult really with this game to know where to start, but we'll go with Dele Bashiru's brace for Sheffield Wednesday. Marcus, 2 really good strikes from the midfielder.
Yeah, outstanding strikes. He doubled his tally from last season already on the opening day. It showed his quality in flashes last term under Moore. That there's so much competition for places at Hillsborough. It's really tough to really establish yourself in that team. I think in midfield areas, Bannon was probably the only player to do it over the course of last season. So yeah, two thunderous strikes really, and he did save Wednesday's blushes in the end, because I was really impressed with Portsmouth. Dele Bashiru only got 1 year left on his contract, so I'm sure Wednesday, at least if he can keep playing to this level, we'll be keen to sort that out in the coming weeks. But no, it just goes to show the squad at Moore's disposal and the strength of it, because I think going into this season, no one was really touting Dele Bashiru to be one of their more dangerous players. But if he can continue to add goals from midfield, then I'm sure he'd be a huge asset. Yeah, that there were some hairy moments, I think some defensive misunderstandings, but yeah, he's ended up digging them out of trouble there. So yeah, they'll be very grateful for it.
Shout out quickly to our Sheffield Wednesday fan pundit on the website who did predict a high scoring game for this one. I don't know quite whether he went with 3-3, but I think he went 3-2 either way. So credit to him for seeing the goal fest that it was at Hillsborough. More goals down in League Two. Then we'll start with Northampton 3, Colchester 2. Ryan Haynes with a late winner for Northampton. Adam, good for Northampton to get off to a winning start after falling short in the playoffs last season.
I think I'd even go as far as saying I think it'll be crucial to their entire season. Obviously, getting themselves ahead. I'm not sure about Colchester's penalty, whether that was. I mean, I think I'd need to get a better angle of it to see whether it was. But it looked, from the angle that I saw it at, it didn't look like a penalty to me. And the goalkeeper nearly saved it anyway. So that would have been a real blow to them if they'd kind of dropped points really in this tie. And obviously, after the way that they kind of missed out on promotion last season, I think it would have been a real sucker punch for them if they didn't get 3 points in this match. I think in terms of Colchester as well, obviously they had a real chance to kind of level it at the end, but they had Northampton had a slice of luck really, and I think they've probably earned that considering the way that they missed out on promotion obviously last season with the 7-0 for Bristol Rovers. So yeah, I think it's going to be crucial for their entire season, to be honest with you. Obviously they got their own penalty, which was a boost for them. Again, I'm not sure about the decision. I think perhaps it was a handball, perhaps it wasn't. But I think in terms of the whole season, it's going to be important for them, because if they missed out, kind of, because of Colchester's soft penalty or because they conceded right at the end, through the chance that Colchester had, then I think that would have been a real blow for them. So to get 3 points on the board, albeit conceding 2 goals, I think will be a massive boost for them, especially for their manager as well, because it would have been quite difficult to pick them off the ground, his team off the ground, if they had dropped points.
Another 5-goal thriller elsewhere in League Two. Barrow beating Stockport 3-2. 3 first-half goals there for Barrow, which proved to be the difference. We're not going to talk about them, though. We're going to focus on Stockport returning to the EFL. Marcus, did we see enough in their sort of second-half fight back to suggest that they're going to be a really good addition back into League Two in the EFL?
Yeah, definitely. Favourites to win the league, I think, going into the season. Obviously, we've seen that Salford City have had their troubles to really push themselves amongst the top teams in the division, despite having one of the bigger budgets. But no, I'm sure, Stockport are going to be a great addition to the league. I think they were possibly a little bit unfortunate just one of those days for Barrow where everything seemed to fly in the first half. 2 of those 3 goals coming from outside the box. Dave Challoner did throw his goalkeeper Ben Hinchcliffe under the bus a little bit in the post-match interview, but I think there was probably enough in that second half performance to build some momentum going into the second game. There did seem to be a little bit of opening day nerves. I think that some of the goals were a little bit avoidable, but I think they can just take the positives and move on. Got a tough game away to Stevenage next. It'll be very interesting to see how they stand up to that test. It's going to be, I think, probably one of the tougher away days in League Two this season. But no, I'm sure they're going to be an excellent addition. They showed just how good they were in the FA Cup last season, and obviously put an incredible run together in the second half of last season to win the National League. And I think they're probably capable of doing something again this season, even if there is a little bit of a transition period with them coming up from the 5th tier. So it was one of those days, I think, where you just have to hold your hands up some of the goals that were flying in for Barrow. But I'm sure in Challoner they've got a safe pair of hands at League Two level. And I see no reason why that they're not able to ruffle some feathers in the top half this season.
Finally, perhaps the most bizarre moment from across the EFL this weekend, Lee Tomlin's red card in Doncaster's 0-0 draw at Bradford City. I'm sure you've seen it, 2 yellow cards within the space of 17 seconds. Adam, what did you make of that?
It was just so avoidable, really. As you said, it's the most bizarre kind of moment of the weekend, and it's just so frustrating because it's just such an avoidable red card. So it'll be a bit of a blow for Bradford, obviously, to be missing him for the next game. And it's just unnecessary, really. Hopefully, it doesn't prove to be costly. But it was just a really bizarre moment of the weekend.
What about you, Marcus? What did you make of Tomlin's red card?
It's not exactly what you want from one of your senior players, is it? It was quite funny, to be honest. I think I'm glad it happened because I think that type of sort of gamesmanship that he's trying to do, I'm glad the referee's been that firm with him, really, and was happy to show 2 yellows in such a short space of time. We know the ability that he's got is definitely above League Two level. It is, things like that have him where he is in his career. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of other highlight reel moments from Lee Tomlin if he can stay fit in League Two this season. But it was bizarre, wasn't it? Hopefully he can learn from it, and Donny can be better for it in the coming weeks.
That concludes this morning's weekend review. Thanks to anybody that's joined us, and special thanks to Marcus and Adam for joining me on the show. This is the only show today on Football League World TV, but plenty coming up throughout the rest of the week, including tomorrow's show where we're going to be looking at 3 championship players that you really need to be getting excited about this season. We've had a little preview, of course, in the first weekend in the championship, so I'm sure some players that stood out will be on the agenda. So please do join us for that tomorrow, but between now and then, take care and we'll see you again soon.